So focusing now on analyzing data within our steps. So what we'll be talking about today is mastering Excel tables. So I'm not sure who has worked with Excel tables. Can you give me a thumbs up if you've worked with Excel tables before? Or you can type in the chat. Okay, seems like Pomelelo has worked with Excel tables. Like tables on Excel, yeah, where you like like do functions within a data table. Okay, cool. So yeah, so doing tables in Excel, so it's also part of data analytics, which is really, I would say, the fundamentals when you work with Excel. It's the fundamentals of, just imagine after you've cleaned your data, then your data now is in a clean state, which is a clean data set. Thereafter, you then need to do an Excel table. And today we'll be looking at, so if you also go on Blackboard, so it's an exercise, it's under class exercises. It's called the Excel tables. That's where what I'll be showing you guys today, it's actually the same file that you can either, if you want to work through it at the same time, you can, or you can always go back to it. But that's what I'll be showing you guys today as an example. So we're just looking at the comprehensive guide to effective data management and analysis on Excel. So let's just look at some of the, the overview as well as the benefits of understanding the shift from ranges to intelligent tables, because we know in Excel, we've got ranges. So this is just a picture showing us a table. So this is a table, if you look on the right, and basically of an Excel table. So what is an Excel table mainly? An Excel table is a specific range of cells, as you can see, because it's like cells with like numbers and figures with the rows and columns. So they all like together. That provide advanced features for managing and analyzing related data. So whenever they are together, but if they don't have a table, because you'll see in the example that I'll be showing you, just having like a simple data set does not mean it's a table. It's not a table. So you have to create a table on Excel whenever you're working with a table. So I'm gonna try, guys, and jump between. I just want to see. I'm gonna try and jump in between Excel and the presentation. Hopefully, I'm gonna win. Okay, so basically, it also has structured data. It's a structured data container where it contains all the structured data. It also has a dynamic range that expands, so you can expand your range. Integrates. It's integrated for filtering and sorting your data, and a simplified formula management. So I'll just jump onto my Excel file. I'll just bring it across. Okay, so basically this is a data set, but currently this data set is not a table. It's just, it's grouped together, but it doesn't function as a table as what I'm mentioning today. So this would be like a normal data set. Okay, so what is the autonomy of a table? So there's a header within a table. So the header is the top row, which automatically enables sorting and filtering for every column. And on Excel, you are able to filter and sort although within a table without even applying it. It's there. You can use it already. It also has bannered rows. So bannered rows is the ones that are shaded. Like the other one maybe will be shaded a lighter color, the other one a darker color, which improves really readability of large data sets. It also handles resizing, so small handle at the bottom. So I'll also be showing you the corner for manual sizing as well. So you can increase your table, you can decrease it by dragging this thing that is always on the corner. It's like a square thing that you can pull with your arrow in order to, decrease your range or expand your range of a table. So there are also strategic advantages of a table. So the first one is data integrity, which prevents formulas from becoming disconnected from their data. So it makes sure if you have a formula, it will always be in the column that you've included. Even if, for example, you move like a column, it will kind of keep your formulas intact. It's not the same when you just have a range of data, then you apply a formula, maybe that references cell C or like column C, but when you move that column, your formula will be broken. But in a table, it would like keep the variable or the field of the specific, column that you've already stated that you want to calculate whatever you're calculating it from. Also for efficiency, so new data inherits formatting and formulas automatic. So for example, if you had to add data, if you were using it for maybe if you have a business and you have a list of customers that you're always, doing orders of customers every time you're adding new information. So the moment you add new information, a new row, a table automatically keeps the formatting of all the columns of the same as the above rows within a data set, or that like the whole table. So it's also good for organization. So tables are named objects. So it has a name. Like whenever you have a table, you need to give it a name, and it then makes navigation via the name box easier. So you can like reference a table and say this table by maybe saying customer table or delivery table, which really is a set of data. It could be of, product inventory table. It could be supplier data table. So you can use it for different types, and then you can also name it. It's also good for portability, which allows easy exporting of the tables to SharePoint for team collaboration. So if you're working on a table, you can share it with your team. If you're working on an environment that is shared within an organization, you can share it with your peer, your manager, and everyone around who can also collaborate, and maybe other analysts as well, and then also work on the same file. So within a table, there are also structured references. For example, in a table, you would say equals sum, and then you select. So it's based on the variable. Whatever the variable or the column name, it will select that whole column. So here you don't use, you could like use like cell references like A to B10. However, for structured references, we use the table and column names rather, because whenever we enter new data, it will just automatically translate everything within that column that we already had to have that certain formula, and then it will give us the answer automatically. So if we, for example, we calculated revenue, and then now all of a sudden we're creating a new row, and then we enter the same information, it will auto calculate the revenue as well for the same column. So it also improves human readability logic. As I've said, it also auto updates when columns change. It also reduces error during formula audits. So, you know, if you use the formula, you use the column or the field. So in data, you call the column a field or a variable. You'll make sure that even if you move that column to, if it was on C and now it's on Z, if the column name is amount, it will always be amount all the time. So basically, you should always name your tables and your columns correctly in order to keep your referencing within the formula itself. Okay, so let's look at the next section, which is really now the section for the practical side of things. So how do we create the table? So setting up the foundation of data tables. So if I bring, so there's different methods that you can actually apply. So whenever you create a table, the first step or the first method I would suggest, it's a shortcut. For example, you can select your range and press Control plus T at the same time, which is the fastest way. So if I bring my table onto the screen, so what I've just mentioned now, so I'm just going to put it on top, like on the top left of my range. And then I'm going to press Control T. As you can see now, it's going to highlight everything. It says create table. So it also highlights the range. So it says I must tick here, my table has headers. So if I click OK, so now this becomes a table. As you see, now I have this thing that says table design. And then it has a whole lot more things. But then if I go back, before I had that, you don't have the table design. You don't have like all the other stuff that you had, because now it's just a range. So another way, it says that you can, another method, you can go onto the ribbon. So the ribbon is the one on top. You can go to the ribbon and press insert and insert table. Excel will guess your range and confirm if you have headers. So if I pull up this again, you go on to insert. So I've got it now anywhere. So I've got my cursor just on the thing. So I'm going to say table. So now you see Excel has guessed that, okay, because it sees all of this information together, gives us the same thing as when we did the shortcut. So now we can also say from here, okay, then it gives us a table where we're able to go on to table design, which is a new tab on the ribbon where we can do like various things. So if I go back, as you can see, that has disappeared. So this is not a table, how it looks. It's just a range of data. It's a data set. So that's how you would create a table. Another method, you can select the data, then on home, go to format and format as table to pick a style and create a table simultaneously. So if I go back, I'm going to select my range, then I go on my home, then over here, I'm just going to go to format as table, and then I can select any design. So I can say maybe this one, or I can create a new style. I'm just going to say this one. You see, once I've pressed that, it also now gives me this option to say, is this my range? And then I need to select headers. And then now that's on the table. As you can see, I also have table design over there. And then this is the type of style which I've got from there. So you can further, like, as you can see, I can't see this first row. You can further like change your table. You can change the colors. So let's say if I left it like this, I can just go and change the font because I can't see the column headers or like the fields. What are they? So I've just applied that white. So this is a table currently, as you can see, which I've created. So those are the 3 different methods that you can create a table on Excel. So using the shortcut CTRL T, where you just press on the top of the range, then it selects. Second method, you go on the ribbon. So you also have to have your cursor like selected on the cells with the data range. You go on insert, you insert the table, Excel will guess the range. Then you need to confirm if the range is correct. Then the third method, which I've just shown you, is you select your whole range of your data, and then you go on, make sure you go on home, you format under styles, you format as table, and then Excel will highlight the whole range, and then it will say, okay, that's a table. And then you have a table. So I'm just gonna go back and just show you those again. So if I just go back, so the first one, so currently this is just a range. So guys, the guys that have just joined, this is also on Blackboard. If you, this Excel file, if you go under class exercises, it's called creating and managing tables. So this is what I'm working on. You can either, on your own spare time, or if you have 2 screens, you can also do it while I'm also here. So the first one was you just have your cell selected, the top right, you control T, then it selects the range, then it gives you the table. Then another way, you also select here, and then you go on you see now I want to go according to the order. You can just select your range, and then you can say format as table, and then you can select any table, and then Excel is gonna just give you that, which is then gonna format the table. Or the other way, you can just to make sure, or you just insert table, you go on, you press insert, and then you select table, and then Excel will guess which one. So I'll be using this one now. So this is my table that I'll be using. As you can see, table design. Okay. Okay, let's just look at data preparation best practices. So as we saw, we have our table. So thinking of the steps that we go through data analytics, we would have cleaned our data. So we've got this raw data, we've cleaned it. Once we have our final clean data, we then translate our clean data into a table. But we still need to, still working towards our final product. We haven't analyzed our data. We're still, preparing, which is quite an important step. But this is the first step of really data analytics within the process of data analytics. So now we actually starting. So we'll be doing tables as well as pivot tables. So this is just the basic tables. So best practices. So the first one is to remove blank rows. So hopefully we would have done this removing of blank rows already when we've cleaned our data. You see, if we don't clean our data correctly up front, we will be left with all this work that we need to do as we go on. So as long as we spend our bulk of our time cleaning the data, making sure the data is clean, by this time we already, confident that our data is clean, it's ready to go. So here, if you had to remove blank rows, you ensure that there are no completely empty rows within your range, because that will mess up everything that you do. If you have empty rows within your range, it won't allow you to filter correctly. It won't allow you to, like aggregate your data, which we'll also be looking at today, different ways of aggregating the data. You need to also make sure you have one heading row. So only use a single row for your headers. So you can't merge cells or anything. It always has to be one row. So the top row, most of the time, has to be your heading row, where you have all the names of your headers. So that's which is what you'll be using going forward. Either when you're doing a formula within a table, it will always reference the name of the header. Consistent data, ensure that columns have consistent data types. For example, your dates, your numbers, or text. So again, guys, going back to data cleaning, if you've done this in data cleaning, you won't really need to be worried here in this step. Like you'll know that, okay, I've checked my dates, I've checked my numbers and everything, instead of like now only cleaning it while you creating a table or once you have a table. Also, distinct column names. So each header should have a unique descriptive name. So as I've also mentioned, you should also always make sure if the column name, so a column, we call it a column, or you can call it a field. So it's a data field, it's a data column, or it's a data variable. For example, sales, or if you had customer email, customer order, number of orders, profit, so all the different headers on top. So those are the column names that are very important in our analytics within data, because going forward, we will need to reference the whole column in a table. We don't like look at cell A2 or whatever. We look at the whole column A, whatever calculation we do, we want to apply to that whole column. Let's look at the power of selection. So Excel is intelligent, very intelligent, guys. As you know, if you want someone who uses Excel every day, now it also has, AI and all of these cool stuff, but it's always been intelligent. I think it was, when you look at how it calculates and does all the stuff, it was kind of AI before AI was there. I mean, AI now can do, it can act as a human and speak back and reply. However, Excel is very intelligent. So for example, when you place your cursor inside a data range and trigger the table creation tool, it automatically scans for boundaries, as I've shown you guys previously. It also detects column headers and proposes a range. It always verifies that my table has headers where you have to check it. So you always have to make sure it's checked to ensure your titles aren't treated as data points, because if you don't take that, it will take your headers and make it as if it's one of the data within your rows, and it will like mess up your analysis going forward. Okay, so now let's talk about formatting and styles. So here it's where we make our data clear, professional, as well as readable. So tables, we can also visually customize them. So you can go on to style gallery. So you access the gallery via table design styles. You choose from light, medium to dark categories. So if I just hover onto my Excel, so I'm here. So I'm here on table design. So you can actually even open this thing up. You can like change different types of styles depending if your business wanted like certain like themes. For example, if you want like a certain color, you work for, I don't know, Amazon, or you'll be orange, or Takealot, it will be like blue and white and black or something. But basically, this is where you would style. So you always go to table. But if I click on the side, you don't see any table design. So you always have to be clicked in the range of the table. So what I spoke about earlier, when I said you can increase the range, you see on the bottom right, when I move there, it gives me this arrow thing, which allows me to drag. So that's how you would increase a table. So now my range is increased, but you can pull it back again to decrease your table. So for example, if you had like more data, you would then increase, or if I started like typing here, like a date, maybe I'll say 25 of Feb 2026, it will automatically create this new thing. So I'm just going to go back. and delete that. So you can also instant refresh. So you're changing a style, updates the entire table instantly, maintaining consistency across thousands of rows. So even if you had like millions of rows, guys, like Excel, I think you can have just over like 1.2 million rows, and then you can't go further down. But basically, it goes on forever, and you can like instantly change the whole style. You can also clear your style. You use the clear option at the bottom of the gallery to remove formatting while keeping the table's functionality. Okay, so these are just some of table style options. So header rows, which I've been speaking about. So what's the purpose of a header row? It displays the first row as headers with filtered buttons. So that's where you can filter your data as well. So we also have another row called total row, which really adds a summary row at the bottom with aggregated functions. So as you saw from our example, we'll be adding a total row at the end where we can aggregate our data using different functions, like you can get an average, you can get a sum or addition, you can get a range, a min, a mode, so different types of stats within the total row. There's also banded rows. So here it's alternate shading between rows to prevent eye straining. So as you can see, this table is also like banded. So the others are dark, the others are light, dark, and light. So it prevents eye straining. If everything was like the same color, you would try and look at which row is this one. So it really just separates the rows. Then you have a first column, applies special formatting like bold at the first column. So it's quite an important column. Then you also have a filter button with toggles, which is used to toggle the visibility of filter arrows on and off. So if you wanted to filter something, you can switch it on and off. So tables also enhance readability. So banding and highlighting. So tables use alternate rows shading to help us as the users follow data points across many columns without getting lost. So if you like looking at a big data set, it also improves scanning speed. So if you're looking with your eye, instead of like, pointing on the screen or like trying to find something, it allows us to scan. Also highly customizable colors as well. It's also good for vertical banding, which is available as well. So that's how you would enhance your readability of a table. So let's also talk about resizing a table. So I think this is what I've just shown you previously as well, where there's this thing which helps us to dynamically increase the table. So if you go to the corner of your table, you'll see this L thing that's like the other way around. So it's a L, and then it also shaded in blue, and then it gives us this arrow. So once you drag it, you'll be able to increase the size of a table. You can either go down, you can go up, you can go sideways. It's one of the most powerful features of Excel tables. Yeah, and then you can just start by type data immediately below the last row or to the right of a last column, and then it will automatically increase the table. You can also paste data. For example, if you got data from somewhere else, but you had like a master table where you had this one Excel file that you're building like your customer base, but you have a system that collects maybe a website that collects data every day, a newsletter, but you have this Excel file that's stored, you can then take the data and then go put it under your table to increase your table every time whenever you have new data, and then keep that table growing and growing and growing. We can also do manual adjustments, so you can drag and scale. So you use the small sizing handle in the bottom right corner, which I've shown you, to manually drag the table range larger or smaller. Design tab tool as well. You can go to table design, and you can also resize the table by redefining the exact range coordinates. For example, you can change your range. So if I bring so we go to table design and resize. So I'm going to go to table design and resize table. So it's there on the top right, resize table. Once I've clicked on it, it then gives me this whole range. So I can see this range says this table goes from A1, which is that corner, up to G11, which is there, G11. So for example, if I wanted to increase it to maybe P, I could just go in here and change this G and put a P. And then my table will now become, wider just by me just changing that. Or I could do it the other way around as well, where I wanted to make it smaller. Or you can like decrease like I can maybe say, let's make it from, I don't know, like until D. Oops, let's just go back. D, and then also we don't want it to end at 11. We want it to end at 8. You see now, although I still have this range, but all the other stuff are not part of the table. The table is only this part. So you can like resize. I'm just going to go back to that. You can resize your table in that way. You can also insert or delete. So right click any cell to use the insert or delete menus, specifically for table rows or columns. So if I can go here, I can just right click. You can say delete. I can delete this whole row if I wanted to. Delete row, and then it's going to delete that row. And then whatever column, so maybe I'm just going to be on this units sold. Right click, and then I'm going to say delete column. Then it's going to delete that units sold column. So basically that's how you can also delete the whole row, as I've shown you. You can highlight, you can even highlight them and say, delete both those rows. Just going to go back again. Okay. So another exciting one, if you're a Excel nerd. So guys, you must be leading at wherever you are with Excel, either at your workplace or anything. You'll see the value you'll get, but it doesn't mean you must be doing people's work. It means you'll be showing your skill, not that you go around like doing people's Excels. Okay, automating logic across your entire data set. So this is a cool one. So another cool function where we can have calculated columns within Excel, or the tables within Excel. So within a range, you can't really have calculated columns. You only have to let's say if you wanted to do a formula, you do it cell by cell, or you do it the cell on top. Then you can drag your range, or you can drag your formula down. But I'll show you a cool thing with Excel tables. So how it works, when you enter a formula in one cell of a table, a table column, Excel creates a calculated column automatically. So I just need to do it for one, and it will automatically create it for the rest. Like it will recognize that, okay, it's part of this column. Everything in this column, give it this formula auto-calculated. It will instantly propagation. So the formula is immediately applied to all other cells in the column. It's also good for consistency. Changes made to the formula in any cell are mirrored across the column. So if I pull this Excel, so for example, if we wanted to insert, so currently, I'm just going to make this a light, like a white color. Okay. I want to create so currently we have units sold, we also have unit price and cost, but we don't have revenue. So if I wanted to create revenue, I would either say insert on the right, or I can just go and start typing here, revenue. So I'll just go with this one, insert on the right. I'll name it revenue. Then what I'm going to do, so revenue is really our unit price times unit sold. So I'll come here. So just to be technical, I'll just also want to change my, just make sure my number formatting is correct. So I'm just going to either change the whole and make it a currency. Then I'm also going to make that a currency. So I'll go here and go equals unit price. As you can see over here, guys, like it doesn't say, it calls out the whole column name. So this is where the intelligence side of Excel comes in. It doesn't reference, doesn't say F2, it says unit price, meaning that whole column. And then I say times that other column, which is units sold. So it means even if I can move these columns around, it will always keep that reference. So if I just enter this one, you see it automatically calculated for everything, because this whole new column of revenue has that same reference in terms of the formula, which is really, if you click on it, it's that times that. Unit price times unit sold, which gives me the revenue. So you can even go like further, like you can even now, you know, this is the cost. You can also calculate the profit. For example, if I wanted profit, just gonna say profit. So now you see, now I just started typing and then I just entered and then it created this new thing. So profit would be equals, so it would be our revenue minus our cost, because that's what it costs us to make the product, and then our revenue. And there's our profit in terms of rands. However, we can't see it. Maybe we want to see it in terms of a percentage. So you can go, so now instead of, so the first time I've said insert, the other time I've just typed, now I'm going to drag this here to create a new column. And then I'm going to call this percent, then say profit. Yes, Amy?
I just wanted to ask, did we say to calculate the revenue, we said the unit price times the cost, right? Or did we say unit times the unit
The
sold times the unit price?
revenue is unit price times the unit sold.
Okay, thank you. I was getting
So,
funny numbers.
oh, okay. Hopefully now you're going to get the right ones. Okay. So guys, the same. So we want to get now the percentage. So the percentage would be, we would be looking at the percent from our cost, really, because you want the profit percent. Let's just see, you're going to say profit rands divided by our cost. Okay, it gives us the currency, but we want that as a percent, no, not time. We want it as a percentage. We just select everything. Okay, that's not the right one. Our profit, sorry, our profit will be profit over our revenue. Yeah, that's the correct one. So you see it's now calculated. So we've created new columns, which was the revenue. So this was the original one. We created the revenue, which was our unit price times units sold, gave us the revenue. And then we calculated the profit column, which was the revenue minus the cost. Then we calculated the percent profit, which was taking our profit amount divided by our revenue. And then now we got these 3 additional columns within our table, which we've created. Is anyone trying it, guys, besides Amy? Or are you following?
Sorry, sir. Can you please do the last one again? I was kicked out, so I didn't see the percentage one.
Okay, the percentage one will be profit equals select profit divided by revenue. Then it gives us the profit percent. So we just create a new column, call it percent profit, and then equals profit divided by revenue. Okay. So why should we use calculated columns? So simply top of the list, it's a time saver. It's a time saver. It eliminates the need for copy and paste, as you saw, or like fill down for formulas. Because sometimes, let's say if it's not a table, you will need to like drag everything down and like fill certain like rows. There's this thing that says fill everything, and then you can click there and then it fills. But sometimes you have to start doing it yourself. But see, as it's a calculated column, you just need to do once and then it calculates everything. But that's where also data cleaning comes in, because if you're, for example, the column that you're calculating, like let's say using 2 columns to calculate something, and one of them is not cleaned correctly, you won't then get the result that is desired in the new column that is calculated that you're trying to create. Also for error reduction, it ensures the same logic is used for every row. It prevents, often cells as well. It's also good for structural auto updates. New rows added to the table will automatically inherit the column's formula. So working with exceptions on Excel. So while calculated columns promote consistency, you can still handle special cases. For example, overriding. You can type a specific value over a formula, which is generated, and Excel will recognize it as an exception. Let's say if you wanted to override something manually, you can go in and like just do it manually. So you can also restore. If you delete the override, Excel will usually revert to the cell, will revert the cell back to the calculated formula. So that's another great thing. Also for control, you can disable full formulas in tables to create calculated columns. You would need to go onto File, Options, and then also Proofing, and then enabling auto correction option. Okay, so part of the last one. So totaling data. So the top row provides a quick way to aggregate data without writing complex summary tables. I mean, the total row. So whenever you have a total row, which you see over here, that's how a total row would look. It's enabled via table. You would need to go, so I'll show you, you need to go via table design, then select table row. So if I just call the Excel, I'm just gonna click on anywhere on my table. I go to table design. There's something called total row over there. I click on total row, and then it gives me this new total row over there.
So can you please do that again?
Okay, you need to, let me just go back. So you first need to select your table, then you go to table design, click on table design, then under table style options, there's like many options, header row, first column, there's one that's called total row. You need to select that one. Cool. Okay. So another great thing about the total row, you can choose a function from the list. For example, as you can see over here, you can go wherever you like, let's say under each column at the end, because you want a total, you can come here to aggregate the data. When you select, it's going to give you this option where you can say you want an average, you want a count, you want a max, a min, a sum, standard deviation, a variance. So you can choose, but mainly I think on here we will maybe for the I think the profit one, the one that has a percent, we can say let's just go back to Excel. You see this one already did a sum, but we're not going to use a sum on the percent. Let's rather use an average, because you want to say average here, and it gives us an average. And then we can go on each of these. So you can either go on each of them or select them together. But let's just go on each of them. So we're going to start with, you see with the others, you can't really like calculate these because it's like just text. But units sold, we want to sum, we want a total. So we're going to sum. Also here, unit price, we want to sum. Cost, everything we sum, except for the profit percent, which we're giving a average. We sum, we also sum, which gives us a total. So as you can see, this table now from here, this is like the first step of our analysis. If we were working for this company, so we can already tell, you know, our boss that, okay, today or this week, we sold 72 units in total. In terms of revenue, we made around 98,950. So we didn't even like, you know, we just typed it in once. Remember, we typed it in there, and then now it's already doing it for us. All the other calculations. And then with this one, we just made it an average because it was making it a sum. So we just want an average, and that's how you would have a total column. I mean, a total row within your table. Okay, so what we just did now, guys, was data aggregation. I know that word sometimes it's like scary when someone's like, can you please aggregate your data, A, B, C, D, E? And then you'll be like scared, like, well, what does aggregation mean? Like I've been around, guys, I've worked for companies, people use like big words, like, what should I do? But basically it means it's aggregating your data, is taking your whole data set and doing a certain function. Either you're getting a sum, so you add up all the values in the column, or you do an average, calculate the mean value of the data, or you can count, which you count the number of entries which are not blank. You can do a max, a min, you find the highest or lowest value. For example, at a university, if you wanted to know who's the highest, which is the highest mark, the lowest mark, you can use max and min to get like the maximum mark and the minimum mark. There's also like more functions, like you can access any Excel function via the function wizard, as you saw. So basically, I think the tables are very powerful, but they like the start of like, you know, the analysis, because within the process of data analytics, you have data analytics, but within data analytics, you still have different processes, which, you know, after cleaning your data, the first process of data analytics, I would say, is the table, making sure you have everything in table. If you need to have new columns that you're going to use later for analysis, you do them within a table. Like now that we calculated a revenue, we calculated the profit percent, the profit amount as well, the actual amount. Then after that, which will be our next step, is when now you do pivot tables, which really pivot tables takes it a step further. But when you understand the basics of a table, it's going to be easier to work with pivot tables, because you can hear the name, it says pivot table. It's tables, but you use it for like big data and like, you know, drag it around. But we'll get there in our next, I think the next term, because this is our last week. Okay, so why total rows use subtotals? So if you can go back to your table, so I'll also just pop it up again. If you check here, it's using a formula called subtotal. It's not using sum, as you can see. And there's a reason it's using a subtotal and not sum. Although they work the same, because even if you can use, not the same, they work similarly, because even if you say sum, it will give you the same sum. But a subtotal has a different function, I would say. Whenever you use, I mean, Excel already automatically use subtotal for us for this reason. Excel table use subtotal function for total rows for a strategic reason, mainly visibility control. So as we know, on Excel, you can apply filters, especially on a table. You can apply a filter. For example, if we were working for Takealot and we had that thing with like cameras and smartphones, data with like different like household items and grocery, but we were working for a certain unit. Maybe we were part of the beauty or fashion team. And we don't really want to look at the electronics things. Within the data, we can then filter by fashion so that our data, we can only see fashion. So you'll see once we work with it, why we're using subtotals. But then you can also be, for example, an analyst looking at the whole company, but then you would need to go to different stakeholders. For example, you would need to go and report to fashion team, beauty team, sometimes the food team, electronics, but you have this one big table, but whenever you go and see the next guy, you just apply your filters, which is the first one. Totals only include rows currently visible after filtering. It also ignores hidden rows or anything that's hidden. So by default, it ignores rows you manually hide. It's also dynamic updating. As you change filters, the totals update instantly in real time. So if we go back here, so these are our filters on top, but we're gonna use maybe the filters for, okay, here everything is electronics. It's fine, we can just go to product. And then over here, we can just select one product. Okay, maybe I wanted something that was gonna have like more than one that is the same. So just for like an example, guys, I'm just gonna mess up my data. I know like you don't have to, I'm just gonna maybe say laptop, and then I'm going to give all these 4 ones laptop. I'm going to just call them laptop. So all these 4 ones are laptops, just to show you, because now currently everything is just different. So if I come here, as you can see, total is 21,500 for units sold. Then here, the total, I can even like just bring it here. It's that for everything, or let's just highlight this whole thing and just paste it as values, just to show like the difference. So if I had to come here and filter this whole table by laptop, okay, let's also do this. I'm gonna say equals, let's not be, it's fine. Let's just say laptop. As you see now, this is different because you see, this was the original one. There's 27 laptops bought in total out of 72. And then the revenue, which was 98,000, laptops account for 75,000. So that's the reason that we use the subtotal. So if you go back again and just clear the filter, it will go back and give us all the results. I'm just going to go back again so that my data is the same. Cool. But basically, that's the reason it uses subtotal. But if it had used sum, it wouldn't dynamically change as you filtered this whole row, like a row or whatever you're filtering using. So basically, that's the reason subtotal is used. So you can also play around and check if you had used sum, what were you going to get? Okay, so for the final one, some advanced tips. So I think this is another for data discovery. So there's integrated filters. I think we've looked at filters, but there are many more filters, guys, within data that you can play around. Like you can filter by, for example, if you shaded things by yellow, for example, you wanted to shade everything that's a laptop by yellow, you can filter by color. You can filter by values that are greater than whatever. You can filter by an icon. You can also use the search bar within the filter to find a specific thing. For example, if you had like big data and we wanted to search for laptops only, you can like type laptop and it will filter everything that's spelled that way. You can also filter by date if you had to. So for example, if we come here and we go on our filter, you see, if we go to text filter, we can also go to color filter. For example, I'll show you, if we highlight just these, let's just highlight all of these in yellow. Cool. So now we want to filter by color. So we will go and filter by color. You see now it filters everything that's that color that we've chosen. We can clear the filter. You can also filter by no fill, like everything that doesn't have a color. So the opposite, you can clear that filter. You can also filter by things that begin with, or like, okay, if we wanted, for example, we only wanted to see sales that are greater than revenue that is greater, let's say, than 4,000. If we come here, we wanted to filter is greater than 4,000. So we don't want to see anything that is below 4,000. As you saw now, it has just filtered by revenue that is greater than 4,000. Then within here, it is left out. We just clear. Obviously, it doesn't filter the total thing. So it didn't, select these ones that are below 4,000, everything that was above 4,000 only. But yeah, guys, that was mastering Excel tables, which is really the first step within data analytics. But I think, as a if you can master this even at your workplace, wherever, it's also very powerful, because after this, you can do more things. You can start visualizing your data. You can do pivot tables. So I think the next time we will even continue from this example to build on to do like pivot table, whatever. So I would encourage that you save this for yourselves, and then yeah, for you also to go back and learn what you've done. But basically, that was it for today. Any questions? Oh, yeah, just as a recap. Sorry, just as a recap. We spoke about filtering. So as I've said, there's a difference between a range and a table. As we saw, within a range, filtering is manual. On a table, it's always set up. In terms of naming, if you have a range, you would say cell coordinates, cell A to C10. Then here we select a certain field or column name. Then if you wanted new data here, we manually format the new data. Then on the Excel table, it automatically styles it. Then for calculations, you would need to manually fill down or drag down within a range, but within a table, it automatically does it for us.